I'm going to tell you something that sounds wrong. In the near South Side neighborhood, the seller who asks for less often walks away with more. And the one who holds firm on price frequently ends up giving back more than they ever would have if they'd priced it right on day one. That's not my opinion. That's what happened 582 times in the last 12 months. Let me show you. If you've been watching the near South Side market and really watching it, you already know it doesn't behave the way most people expect. Properties move faster than buyers are ready for. Sellers make decisions that cost them weeks and thousands of dollars. And the difference between a smooth transaction and a painful one almost never comes down to luck. I spent the past year tracking every condo sale in this neighborhood, 582 of them. And what I found isn't what most people assume. So today I want to walk you through exactly what the data says, not as a spreadsheet, but as a story. Because when you understand this market, you make better decisions. All right, just to give you the sense, the near South Side includes from Roosevelt Road down to 26th along the lakefront. So it includes Central Station, some of the South Loop, and farther down into Motor Row. Great lofts, great homes, lots of stuff going on here. So there are three very different experiences, and there are three things happening for buyers and sellers, and they're happening side by side. The first is what I call the mainstream market. 2 and 3 bedroom condos priced somewhere between $350 and $750. This is the heartbeat of the neighborhood. The most buyers, the most sellers, the most competition. And when people say near South Side is a seller's market, this is where that's most true. The second experience is the smaller unit market, studios and 1 bedrooms, mostly under $350. 35% of all sales in this neighborhood fall here. Different buyers, different pace, different strategy. All right. The third is luxury, above $1 million, only 4% of the sales, a completely different set of rules. I'll walk you through each one, but first, there's one number that anchors everything. There are only 97 active listings in this neighborhood right now. The market closes nearly 50 sales every month. That's 2 months' supply. And that means this market doesn't sit and wait for buyers to get comfortable. Sellers who price correctly and prepare properly go to contract in 15 days. 15. The sellers who don't, they're still on the market 65 days later, having dropped their price, giving back $14,000 they didn't have to give. That gap, 15 days versus 65, is the most important thing I'm going to tell you today, and everything else connects back to it. So here's something that surprises most buyers and sellers. In this neighborhood, your building matters as much as your price. I track 40 buildings that have enough sales to be meaningful. The fastest one, 221 Cullerton, averaged 6.5 days to contract. 6.5 days. Buyers there are prepared and they move immediately. A different building in the same neighborhood averaged 81 days. Same zip code, same amenity corridor, completely different story. So what creates that gap? It's not magic. It's building management, reserve health, recent assessments, and what builders have collectively decided about a building over time. The market has an opinion about every building, and that opinion shows up in the data. If you're a buyer, knowing a building's velocity before you tour tells you something critical about what you're walking into. If you're a seller, knowing where your building sits shapes your pricing, your expectations, and how much runway you need. Prairie Quarter buildings are the liquidity leaders in this neighborhood, but that spectrum from fastest to slowest is a 12-to-1 spread, and it's data. It's not opinion. 3 things that separate fast from slow. What drives speed? 3 things. Beyond the building, 3 things consistently separate properties that go in 2 weeks from those that go in 2 months. First of all, parking. This almost never fails. Units with parking sell faster and for $119,000 more than units without. Second, monthly cost. Buyers here are sophisticated. They add it all up. Mortgage, HOA, property taxes. When the total monthly nut crosses a certain threshold, the pool of qualified buyers willing to buy shrinks noticeably. Buildings with HOA dues above $1,100 a month take twice as long to sell as buildings in the $400 to $600 range. Not because the units aren't worth it, but because fewer people can comfortably carry the monthly cost. Third, building age. The sweet spot in this market is buildings between 2000 and 2004. Modern enough to feel current, old enough that the HOA has had time to stabilize. They move in 16 days on average, the fastest in the data set. The pricing truth. This is the hard conversation. So I want to come back to that 15 versus 65-day gap because it deserves more than a passing mention. 1 in 5 sellers in this neighborhood reduced their price before they sold. 1 in 3 relisted after a failed contract. Together, that's roughly half the market going through a harder experience than they needed to. And what did the price reducers get in waiting? They gave back $14,000 on average. They spent an extra 50 days in uncertainty, carrying the costs, inconvenience, and the psychological weight of a listing that's going nowhere. And they ended up at a price that they could have started at day one. I've been doing this for 39 years, and the hardest conversation I have with sellers is never about staging or timing the market conditions. It's about where we look honestly together at this market and what buyers are willing to pay before the sign goes up, not after 6 weeks of sitting. This data makes that conversation easier because it's not my opinion. It's 582 transactions telling the same story. So if you're thinking about selling, here's what the data says you should realistically expect depending on where you sit. In the mainstream range, 2 or 3 bedrooms, correctly priced with parking in a well-regarded building, you should be under contract within 2 to 3 weeks. The most competitive addresses may move in under 2. 66% of sellers in that range closed at or above their asking price. This is a favorable market for prepared sellers. In the smaller unit market, plan for 3 to 4 weeks. The 2 factors most within your control are condition and parking. Get both right before you list. And in luxury, above $1 million, build in more time and go in knowing that only 40% of luxury sellers in this neighborhood achieve their asking price. Correct pricing matters even more at the top of the market, not less. The fastest luxury sale in this data set closed in 2 days at $1.35 million. Priced right, it moved instantly. All right, so what should buyers expect? If you're buying, the approach changes depending on where you're shopping. In the mainstream market, this is a decision environment measured in days, not weeks. The 500 to 800,000 range is the fastest moving segment in the entire neighborhood, 14 to 16 days to contract. That means you need your pre-approval current and your ceiling figured out before you walk into a showing, not after. In the smaller unit market, you have a bit more breathing room, and I'd encourage you to use it wisely. Research the building before you fall in love with the unit. Ask about the HOA reserves, recent assessments, and any pending special assessments. Management quality matters enormously at lower price points where surprises are harder to absorb. And if you're a luxury buyer, above $1 million, you have more negotiating room than anywhere else in this market. Take your time to be thorough, but understand this. When the right building and the right unit come together at the right price, it still moves fast. You have room, but not unlimited time. The near south side is a real market. Not a hot headline, not a cautionary tale. It's a real neighborhood where there are great properties to be found, and a wonderful place to live. So if you're thinking about buying or selling in this neighborhood, please reach out and I'll help you through the buying and selling nuances so that you can find a place that you can call home. I'm Ann Rossley with Baird & Warner. Thanks for watching.
Okay, let's go.